Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So every now and then I release a build and show people what it's about, show them the skill tree, show them the gems, and they're all happy. And then I get a bunch of the comments like, "Crap! What about the bandits?" And I think it's pretty obvious stuff. So I kind of want to go through it and show you guys the decision making that goes into the bandit choices for all builds. It's actually pretty simple. So in normal, and in cruel, and in merciless, the choices are different, and they are fairly significant because there is no way to respec your decision at this point in time. The guys over at Grinding It have mentioned that it's something they really want to change, but the fact that they've said that they want to change it and the fact that they haven't changed it pretty much means that they can't change it right now. So it's something that they'll probably be able to do sometime in the future, but for now, it's a good idea to not make any mistakes when it comes to this stuff. So the first thing you need to know is what kind of character you're building right now. If you're not too sure, you have to live with the consequences that some of these decisions may not be the best ones. So when it comes to the normal bandits, it's the easiest one of them all. If you want to make an energy shield based character, then you kill all the bandits for the skill point. But if you have a character that's primarily life based or hybrid based, pretty often is also better to pick Oak. So to help Oak and kill the other bandits. Doing so will give you 40 life. 40 base life is more than one skill point will give you in any life node, except for the very, very few on the skill tree. That's kind of the idea there. It's just a really, really good life node instead of a skill point. And when you get to Cruel, the decisions get a little bit more complicated. In Cruel, you can choose between 4% cast speed, 8% attack speed, and I believe it's now 16% or 18% physical damage. And each of these choices are better than most 1-point investments in the passive skill tree. But when it comes to cast speed, I personally don't feel it's worth it. With a caster, typically getting an extra point allows you to get something else. Cast speed doesn't really scale that well because of the faster casting gem adding so much of it, and because it stacks additively with everything else. Typically, cast speed is not the best choice for a caster, but in some cases it is, though even if it is, I probably wouldn't pick it, simply because it's so marginal over all the 3% cast speed nodes in the skill tree that I'd rather gain the flexibility, seeing as there's no respec, there's no respec right now, there's no way to change your decision. So I just go for the skill point if you're a character that just casts stuff. When it comes to attack speed versus physical damage, you really have to see how much of it you already have. In my opinion, typically you're going to get better return from attack speed than you are for physical damage, but if you're something that can't get like a weapon-based physical damage, like maybe EK, maybe for bear traps, maybe for like shockwave totem, maybe for facebreaker, then you definitely want physical damage if you're one of those things, or if it's really hard to scale your physical damage. And not many builds can profit from this one as much as the attack speed. If you're like an attack-based character, it's almost always better to get the attack speed. The few ways it's not is if you have just a crap load of attack speed, and this is typically the case if you're scaling off of an ability that grants attack speed. So what does this mean? Well, if you're using something like Frenzy, you get an absurd amount of attack speed from the Frenzy charges scaling the Frenzy, and similarly I believe Flicker Strike behaves this way. There may be a few other skills as well. So if you use one of these skills and attack speed is not worth it, and you can decide whether the physical damage is worth it versus one skill point, but it's typically worth it over the skill point if you have a lot of attack speed. So you kind of have to gauge how much of each you have and go for the one you have the least of. But they're both very, very good points for attack-based or physical-based characters. If you're a caster though, probably getting the skill point. And if you're a variety of complicated builds that require a lot of skill points, you might just get the skill point anyway, even if it's better for your class to pick one of the bandits in Cruel. When it comes to Merciless, this is where things get pretty interesting. Saving each of the bandits will give you an additional 1 to any of the charges that you want. So you can get an additional endurance charge, an additional power charge, additional frenzy charge. Additional frenzy charge is typically not chosen very often. 5% attack speed is pretty much nothing. But if you have a secondary benefit from the frenzy charge, it may be worth it. Again, if you're using like Flicker Strike, if you're using frenzy as your primary attack, or if you're using some of the more niche items, like there is a unique that gives you 1% life regen for each frenzy charge you have active. So frenzy charge will give you 5% attack speed, 1% life regen, which is a pretty good trade-off for one skill point. So in those cases, it can be worth to get the frenzy charge. The power charge is pretty popular these days because a lot of people play casters, and a lot of people play crit-based casters because that's kind of the best way to play them. And a lot of people who do this, they have either on their primary attack or on a secondary attack a power charge on critical gem associated to their skills. And they're getting power charges to augment their primary ability for critical. And if you are doing this, if your character is based around it, for instance, a lot of the spork builds use it, like the crit-based discharge uses these charges very, very effectively. If you think you can make use of this over a skill point, typically it's the case, very obvious so, because you're probably getting all the power charge on the skill tree if this is what you're looking to do, then you get the power charge. It should be a pretty obvious decision. The endurance charge is actually one of the more interesting ones. So a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I don't use frenzy charges, I don't use power charges, I'm just going to get the skill point. This is a reasonable way to think it through, but endurance charges in Path of Exile are actually really, really powerful because they augment your armor tremendously when it comes to mitigating physical damage. So taking the endurance charge is not something a lot of guides recommend, but I would say that it's never actually a mistake. You can use Enduring Cry and you can stack up those endurance charges and do a boss you otherwise may have been one-shotted on. So that's kind of how you have to think about it. Even if you don't use any of the charges actively, just having that potential to get the extra endurance charge versus a skill point, it's just not a wrong decision. It may not be the best one. For instance, my new summoner character that I've been playing, I just killed them all because I don't think I want more endurance charges. I have a pretty huge life pool. I have a lot of minions. But if I want endurance charges, I'm next to 2 of them on the skill tree. So I'd probably just get those. I'll be at 5. I'll probably be fine. But the difference between 5 and 6 endurance charges when it comes to physical mitigation is huge. So if I had picked the endurance charge as opposed to the skill point, wouldn't have been a mistake. So that's kind of how it is. Some pretty interesting decisions there, and hopefully we'll see some respec options soon, so all the mistakes that have been made with these characters can be resolved. But for now, hopefully I'm giving you guys enough advice to get it through and make your characters as good as they can be in this moment. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.